Good morning, everybody. Good to see y'all. Okay. I'm Lisa Jones, Chair of the Board of Directors for Housing Development Partners, or HDP and HDP Mason. It is 9:07, let's say, on January 23rd, 2025, and I'm calling to order the special meetings of the HDP and HDP Mason boards. We have a quorum with 3 board members present. Video of today's meeting is being streamed live online. The link to watch today's meeting is on HDP's website at www.hdppartners.org. Members of the public who wish to provide comments to both the HDP and HDP Mason board will need to complete a speaker slip here in the boardroom and submit it to our Vice President of Communications, Scott Marshall, who is standing at the side of the boardroom. In a moment, I will propose placing items 100 and 101 from both the HDP and HDP Mason agendas and item 102 from the HDP agenda on a consent agenda today. Members of the public may provide comments about the items on the consent agenda by submitting a speaker request form for that item before the board considers the consent agenda. To speak in favor of any item on today's agenda, please submit the gold-colored form. To speak in opposition to any agenda item, please submit the pink-colored form. Those who wish to address the board about a topic that is not on the agenda should fill out a white speaker request form. Members of the public will have 3 minutes each to provide their comments about agenda items or non-agenda public comments. However, if a large number of people wish to, that's probably unlikely at this point, if a large number of people wish to provide non-agenda public comments or speak on a single agenda item, comments will be limited to 1 minute each. Collective testimony by those who support or oppose an item shall be limited to no more than 15 minutes total per side. When I call your name, please step to the podium, state your name for the record, and begin making your comments. We will now move on to non-agenda public comments for both the HDP and HDP Mason boards. Any speaker slips, Scott? No? No speaker slips have been submitted, so this concludes non-agenda public comments. Next, I will ask if any board members would like to make any comments. Me neither? All right. I have a few brief updates for the board this morning. Changes in property management companies is one of the things we'd like to update you on. Last June, this board approved changes in the property management companies HDP contracts for the residential properties in our portfolio. Those changes have been implemented effective on October 1st, 2024. Con-Am is now managing 647 housing units at 5 of our properties. Hyder & Company is managing 411 units at 16 properties, including single-family homes and accessory dwelling units. In addition to the single-family homes and ADUs, Hyder is managing affordable housing with supportive services for people who were experiencing homelessness, often referred to as permanent supportive housing. Con-Am is managing affordable housing properties for households with low income, including properties financed with low-income housing tax credits. Con-Am and Hyder were the 2 highest-ranked respondents to a request for proposal for property management services for these properties, and we look forward to continuing to work with them. In addition, in last June, this board also approved HDP's exit from the Partnership for the Island Village property. This is a 281-unit property with rents affordable for households earning up to 50 or 60% of San Diego's area median income. HDP is the nonprofit co-managing general partner. The other co-managing general partner, known as East Village West LLC, is in the process of obtaining lender approval to select a new nonprofit co-general partner. They have asked HDP to delay exiting the partnership until the end of March 2025, and HDP has agreed. HDP will receive the entire asset management fee of $30,000 for 2025. Finally, we are excited to let you know that Colin Miller, there you are, Colin, rejoined us in December as Senior Vice President of Real Estate Development. Colin oversees multifamily housing finance, single-family housing finance, development, property acquisitions, land use, and affordable preservation. He has previously served with the Housing Commission and HDP for about 10 years, where he excelled on multiple projects, including the award-winning rehabilitation of the Hotel Churchill, which I would point to over there if it wasn't that we had all of the blinds closed. We look forward to Colin's return and the leadership he will provide to the outstanding real estate division team he oversees. Welcome back, Colin. We're thrilled to have you back. Next is the approval of the minutes from the June 13th, 2024 meetings of both the HDP and HDP Mason boards. Any speaker slips? No speaker slips have been submitted regarding the minutes. First, we will consider the HDP board meeting minutes. Do any board members have any changes to the minutes, or do we have a motion?
So moved.
Wonderful. And we have a motion by Board Member Ryan Klumpner, and we need a second.
Second.
And a second by Gary Gamling to approve the minutes from the June 13th, 2024 HDP board meeting. Thank you both. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. All right. The motion carries unanimously. We will now adjourn as the HDP board and convene as the HDP Mason board to vote on the HDP Mason board meeting minutes from the June 13th, 2024 meeting. May we use the same motion and second for the HDP Mason board meeting minutes?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion by, I keep wanting to say Commissioner, Board Member Klumpner, and a second by Board Member Gramling to approve the minutes from the HDP Mason board meeting of June 13th, 2024. All those in favor, perfect timing, we got through all the dull stuff. Say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. We now reconvene as both the HDP and HDP Mason boards. As I mentioned earlier this morning, I'm proposing placing the following items on the consent agenda from both the HDP and HDP Mason agendas. Item 100, the approval of the appointment of a member of both the HDP and HDP Mason boards. And item 101, the authorization of a signatory for documents for HDP and HDP Mason. I am also proposing item 102 from the HDP agenda as a consent agenda item. That is the approval of the HDP board meeting schedule for this year. No speaker slips have been submitted for these three items. First, we will consider the HDP board consent agenda, which again is items 100, 101, and 102. Do any board members have any changes to the minutes, or do we have, wait,
So moved.
minutes? All right. We know what we're talking about. There we go. Moving on. Sorry, we had a motion by, that went past me fast. Who motioned first?
I did.
Thank you, sir. And a second by Mr. Mitchell. All right. To approve the consent agenda, the HDP board's consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. We will now adjourn as the HDP board and convene as the HDP Mason board to vote on the HDP Mason board's consent agenda, which is item 100 and 101. May we use the same motion and second?
Yes. Yes.
Wonderful. We have a motion by Member Gramling and a second by Member Mitchell to approve the HDP Mason board's consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those, I was going to let you fill it in. All those opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously. We will now reconvene as the HDP board. Still not as fast as Mitch, but I'm working on it. The next item is item 103, the 2025 budget for Housing Development Partners. We will take public comments after the staff presentation. Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer Suket Dayal and Vice President of Real Estate Finance Julie Conserva will present this item. Please begin when you're ready.
Good morning. Housing Development Partners, HDP, is a San Diego Housing Commission's nonprofit affiliate incorporated in 1990 to provide affordable housing for services for people with low or moderate income, seniors, and individuals with disabilities. Our portfolio consists of 1,701 units. 370 of these units are dedicated for people experiencing homelessness. From a fiscal perspective, HDP's financial activities are incorporated into San Diego Housing Commission's annual comprehensive financial report, or ACFR. The Housing Commission's ACFR, including HDP financials, are then incorporated into the City of San Diego's annual comprehensive financial report. Our presentation today will cover the HDP budget for 2025. This will be followed by Emmanuel Ariano's presentation, which will cover property operating budgets. HDP's proposed budget includes revenue, operating expenses, and capital expenditures, and fund balance transfers. The $4.5 million in revenue includes receipts from cash flows from rental properties and partnership management fees. In fiscal year 24, we're expecting some final developer payouts. Those have successfully occurred and are reflected in the projected totals. Total proposed uses of funds include operating expenses of $2.72 million that cover the salaries, professional, and administrative expenses. Around 9 staff positions are allocated in this budget. Budgeted expenses also include $10 million for a potential new property acquisition to create affordable housing units. Our city continues to experience a shortage of rental housing affordable for households with low income. A potential new property acquisition would support ongoing efforts to create and preserve affordable housing necessary to address this shortage. With that, I'll pass it on to Julie.
Reserves proposed for 2025 include a $1 million corporate operating reserve, a $1.8 million property reserve required for guarantees of operating shortfalls for rental properties in which HDP acts in the general partner capacity, $1.5 million of board-approved commitments related to the affordable housing developments, $600,000 project reserve to fund short-term project loans from funding source timing gaps, and a $1.2 million capital improvement reserve for property replacement reserve shortfalls. Next slide, please. We are recommending that the board take the action shown in the staff report and on this slide. And next slide. And that concludes our presentation. Any questions?
All right, board members. Comments, questions?
I just noticed that the significant increase in the decrease in professional fees, but also the increase in salaries and benefits, and it just stood out. So I'm assuming that there's a significant increase in bodies.
So in fiscal year 24, the budget included 7 budgeted positions. For most of the year, there was a vacant position that has now been filled with Colin. Fiscal year 25, we do plan to increase our acquisition and development activities, and that's the reason why we have 9 budgeted staff members.
Thank you.
Anything further? Do we have a motion? Second, thank you. All right. We have a motion by Board Member Mitchell and a second by Board Member Gramling to approve item 103. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously. We will now reconvene as both the HDP and HDP Mason boards. The remaining items on the agenda are the 2025 property budgets for the properties in HDP's portfolio and HDP Mason. These are items 104 through 115 on the HDP board agenda and item 102 on the HDP Mason board agenda. We will take public comments on these items after the staff presentation. We will have one staff presentation for all these items, which Vice President of Asset Management Emmanuel Arellano and Director of Asset Management Brandon Sarkisian will present. Please begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Lisa. Good morning, board members and legal counsel. This morning, Brandon and I will provide you with an overview of the 2025 property operating budgets. I will first share some general metrics of the HDP portfolio in a roll-up of the 12 individual HDP properties as well as of HDP Mason. Brandon will provide you with additional insight into the operating income, expenses, and NOI expectations. We will wrap up with details regarding our ongoing focus on cost containment, financial and physical preservation of the real estate portfolio. Excuse me. For 2025, on a per unit level, HDP portfolio is anticipated to have an operating income of about $22,000 per unit per year, with a net operating income of $12,000 per unit per year. For HDP Mason, the 2025 operating income anticipated is approximately $26,000 per unit per year, with a net operating income of almost $10,000 per unit per year. HDP Mason is a small 17-unit PSH property with lower economies of scale in comparison to the larger properties in the portfolio. These per unit per year figures are consistent with comparable figures for similar properties as shared by the property management firms that we work with. This slide shows the difference between the 2024 budget and the 2025 budget at a portfolio level. HDP Mason is not included here, but will be presented on the next slide. The 2025 portfolio budget total income is anticipated to increase by 8%. Expenses are anticipated to increase by 3%, with an NOI of 12% higher in comparison to the 2024 portfolio budget. Some large line item variances include lower total other income amounts driven by lower anticipated cleaning fees and rent recovery income. The details on the operating expenses will be discussed further on in the presentation. This slide shows the difference between the 2024 budget and the 2025 budget for HDP Mason. The 2025 budget total income and expenses are to increase by 3% and 14% respectively from the 2024 budget. And NOI is anticipated to decrease by 11% or $21,000. This decrease is attributed to the commercial tenant moving out of the property in 2024. We are actively marketing the vacant commercial space but have received minimum interest. Details on the operating expenses will be elaborated on further on in the presentation.
Thank you, Emmanuel. One item affecting our total income is the total loss to lease, which is the difference between current rent and maximum allowable rent at our properties. Over the years, HDP has approached rent increases conservatively. We even paused rent increases during the COVID-19 pandemic years. This resulted in rent increases not keeping up with max allowable rents. With these planned rent increases, they will assist the properties in paying for ongoing maintenance, property management expenses, staff, security, and other items, which have increased over the years. The 4 properties with the largest loss to lease are Knox Glen, Town & Country, Mariners Village, and Village North Seniors. For 2025, the expected loss to lease is expected to be $2.7 million. The proposed 2025 operating budget reflects a 5% rent increase for Knox Glen, Town & Country, and Village North Seniors, 8.6% for Mariners Village, and 3% for all other PBV projects. Proposed rent increases are in line with Assembly Bill 1482, which imposes rent caps on residential properties in California. The changes in rents for the project-based voucher units, or PBV units, does not impact tenant's portion of the rent, which is still based on household income. Regarding total operating expenses of the portfolio, 1/3 of HDP's portfolio provides permanent affordable rental housing with supportive services for people experiencing homelessness, or permanent supportive housing, or PSH. PSH presents unique operating challenges such as higher security, unit repair, and turnover expenses. I do want to note Mason Hotel is a PSH property. Continuing with operating expenses, HDP has continued to see increases in expenses and utilities. The city of San Diego has indicated an increase in water and sewer rates of 4%, while SDG&E has indicated an estimated increase of 4% and 8% for electricity and gas, respectively. Maintenance costs for the buildings are also anticipated increases for contracted trade services such as landscapers, painters, and plumbers. Salary expenses continue to increase with competitive job market, resulting in longer searches to fill vacant job openings and increasing costs of temporary employees. Did I skip a slide? I skipped a slide, I apologize. Lastly, I do want to turn to insurance. Insurance expenses continue to rise with the portfolio. HDP added, for this year, HDP added additional insurance coverage for pollution and mold events, which resulted in a premium increase of $51,000 above the premium increase from last year. Additionally, outside of the additional coverage, the insurance renewal for 2024-2025 saw a roughly 20% increase for coverage that spans from September 2024 to August 2025. For the remaining 4 months of 2025, HDP has budgeted a 15% increase in insurance costs to cover that expected increase that we'll see next year on the insurance premium. The HDP properties continue to benefit from economies of scale with an umbrella policy, so that does help with some economies of scale. As we know, insurance premiums continue to be a challenging expense to mitigate industry-wide. Going on the next slide. Ultimately, this all results in a 2025 budgeted portfolio net operating income of $12.9 million, which exceeds the 2024 annualized net operating income by 16%. We continue to focus on efforts to reduce expenses throughout the entire portfolio by taking advantage of available programs to reduce expenses, including but not limited to utility savings programs and potential solar installations. I'm going to hand it back up to Emmanuel.
Thank you, Brandon. During 2025, asset management will continue to closely monitor the financial performance of the portfolio and timely address any negative trends identified. Our focus on cost containment will continue by taking advantage of any available programs and funding to help offset the operating and replacement cost of the portfolio. This is in conjunction with our ongoing oversight of the physical performance and long-term preservation of the assets in accordance with physical needs assessment reports. Staff recommends that the HDP and the HDP Mason Board of Directors approve the 2025 property operating budgets as detailed in the staff report for the properties shown on this slide. This concludes staff's presentation. Before opening the floor for questions, I'd like to thank the asset management and the financial services team for their hard work behind these budgets. This is a multi-month effort that we start in the summer every year with a lot of information and analysis behind the information presented for you today. So thank you. Thank you, John.
No speaker slips have been submitted for items 104 through 115 on the HDP board agenda and item 102 on the HDP Mason board agenda, so this concludes the public comment period for these items. We will first consider items 104 through 115 on the HDP board agenda. Board members, do we have any questions, comments, or do we have a motion?
I have a question. You talked about the insurance-related costs, but there's another growing insurance-related cost, and that is having to make the physical improvements to accommodate the increasing demands of the insurance companies. Have you begun calculating or getting bids on what those changes are going to do to the budget?
Yes, we've incorporated as part of our planning for this year expected increases with the repairs and maintenance of the properties. So that's contemplated with our forecast of the budgets.
Yeah, one example is what I'm seeing is there's now a requirement from the insurance companies that a device be attached to the gas meters that will automatically shut the gas off if nobody's around. It's an interesting looking red box on there, but I'm seeing that more and more.
We did last year in 2024, a couple of our properties were inspected by our insurance company, and they did provide some feedback on items they wanted to address. They actually asked us at 2 properties install some water leak detection devices. So you're right, they're being proactive to manage their potential expenses.
And I will say, the asset management team, along with property management team, has been working through a rather extensive physical needs assessment across all, both Housing Commission and HDP properties, understanding that even though we do a good job on a year-to-year basis in maintaining our properties, we have an aging portfolio, a significantly aging portfolio. So how we plan in this year and in future years around budgeting to keep up with that so that we don't end up with a lot of deferred physical needs that end up costing us significantly in a single year. Planning for that on an annual basis can be really important. So that is a tool that we are hoping to have completed, the next month or so, Jeff, I think, which will also help inform whether we come back for, budget amendments or also inform over the next 5 years what we're really going to be incurring to keep our properties in quality shape, while also trying to, as staff noted, minimize rent increases to balance out, making sure we're covering increasing costs, we're keeping the properties in a quality condition, but also not having to do those really big rent increases that can have big impacts to households. So it's really a balance. We certainly have over the past chosen not to go up to the max rent caps that we can, so that we can continue to make our housing some of the most affordable in the city. But it's, you have to balance that out. And I think the staff has done a really good job of managing that. Thank you.
I totally agree, and in addition to the maintenance as well, the lease loss, I think, also impacts our long-term production or acquisition abilities. So, as admirable as it is that we try to have our properties be the most affordable, I think that we're doing a good job of balancing that against the need to have a system that produces more housing in the future, because the worst outcome would be that we barely cover our costs because we're charging below the allowed rents, and also hamstringing our ability to add additional deed restricted housing in the future. So I think we're all on the same page. I do have a question related to the insurance, because I think that we've been, prior to the past 2 weeks, this was already a major concern. It's only a growing concern now. Are we required to have insurance, or would it be a possibility at some point in the future for us to self-insure?
For the HDP portfolio, we have different investors and lenders, so we do have that requirement. The policy we have in place mirrors the requirements that we have in the governing docs.
Suket, do you want to add anything on the insurance component and like our sort of like insurance banking versus self-insurance?
Yeah, so for most of, especially the SDHC portfolio, we are part of a pool of either housing authorities or cities or government agencies, and that's where we get our insurance from. So you're kind of limiting the exposure to industry that's kind of similar, so you're not going out in the open market and competing with that. So that does help.
And that provides us better rates, is what you're saying?
Yes, that provides us better rates, yeah. And more protections in case we do have some.
Do we require that any of our properties, that the renters actually get their own insurance for renter's insurance? Require or suggest strongly?
Not a requirement. It is suggested, and I know some of our tenants do opt in, and it's not our requirement at this point.
So the pool we're in, our expectation is that it is going to limit our exposure to increases that are related to unsimilar properties. For example, the fires in LA, which by and large are not affecting comparable properties.
Correct, and that's mainly residential. This one is not residential, so it protects us on those things. It's a double protection, right? So if there is an incident that does happen at our properties, or you do hear of public housing complex that does get impacted by a fire, they sometimes become uninsurable because they can't go anywhere. That's when you're part of a pool, and it does help. So it helps us both ways in keeping the limits down and also ensuring that you will have coverage.
Got it. Thank you. I think that's all for now. Although obviously I think we're all going to be watching this over the next few years. So yeah. Very
closely. I wanted to just I wanted to highlight a comment you made. I keep wanting to say Commissioner Klumner. Mr. Klumner. You highlighted this sort of natural tension point between increasing rents in a thoughtful way and also creating the opportunity for HDP as a body to create more affordable housing. HDP, Housing Development Partners, it's a developer. That is why HDP exists. HDP exists to develop. If we're not developing, it's not really an agency anymore, right? So this sort of natural tension between managing our net operating income, not getting too aggressive on the folks that we're serving in our rental markets. And the reality is most of these units are not subject to AB 1482, but we still take that into consideration, right? And we still take sort of like what is a reasonable expectation over time. Having that funding and that income, that NOI to come in and build up so that we can go create more affordable housing is why HDP exists, right? So I really appreciate you highlighting that. And the reality is, as we have more challenges with project-based vouchers on the SDHC side, the ability for this agency, HDP, to create more affordable housing through their own efforts and through this sort of balance of net operating income is going to be even more important going forward. So like this is the time to lean in to this development partner as our affiliate to do some of the things that we might not be able to do as an SDHC agency, right? So I just want to note how much I appreciate you highlighting that, because it's really important as we think about how we manage budgets and how we create housing opportunities going forward. HDP is going to be a great tool for that.
Hey, how are you guys? Question for you. A couple of things, just quick notes. In looking at the operating budgets, I don't know if you have an assigned account executive from SDG&E, but I would suggest that if you don't, we find one to make sure we're getting some certainty on what the increases are going to be for gas and electricity. I think there's actually going to be a little bit of a decrease in electricity, unexpected. But I want to make sure that you always have the right person, the same person to talk to, and in particular because as we look at some of the operating budget increases, the accuracy is going to be essential. And what's happening right now is a lot of discussion about the trajectory of price. And so we have to look at all the opportunities that are available to take care of this portfolio of properties, utilizing all of the incentives and money that's available. So we can talk about that afterwards. The other thing is on the anticipated increases in cost for contracted trade services, such as landscapers, painters, and plumbers. I would assume that we probably consider, because the entity is in the development business, is there anything we can do with the academy where we can start to train our own pool of people who could be regular contributors to the maintenance, because we're contracting for the trades and services, but I would assume that is it possible we could create our own pool through the academy?
You're talking about through the Achievement Academy and sort of some partnerships with external partners around that?
I think that's definitely something we can connect with the Achievement Academy and see what resources, what partners they have. I know at one point, it's been a few years, we work with, I want to say it was Urban Core, and they provided some manpower to do certain services at the properties.
I just think that as we get into, and Vice Chair Klumper is going to lead the strategic plan, one of the things, we have this growth mindset that you just mentioned about adding properties, and that contracted services number will continue to go as the portfolio grows. So I just think we need to start thinking about, okay, what's the creative way to keep up with deferred maintenance? Because sometimes the deferred maintenance that goes overlooked is the simple things, little things, because it's a budget issue. We can't find the contracted services. They're unavailable. Looking ahead at contracted services over the next 5 years, with the devastation that's happened in LA and Altadena, there's going to be a huge draw of people and talent north. So if you're looking to get anything done down here, it may be tough. So I just think we should start thinking now about how we build our own contingent out of sheer need. But also, it may save us some money, and we could provide an essential training service that could help us not just with the portfolio, but the existing, but anything we grow into.
If I know Stephanie Murphy, if she's listening right now, she's already making phone calls.
That's true. I figured. Yeah, she's exactly. I know Stephanie.
So we'll make sure she watches this so that she knows exactly where she wants to go.
Well, and what drove it is
the
the competitive job market. So if you think about the competitive job market and then what's happening in LA and Altadena, and this is the right time to consider how we can build our own.
I think we saw that exiting the pandemic, everything had gotten more expensive, and I think just when things were starting to level off just a bit, the fires occurred. So from day one, we knew that's going to have an impact on just all services to maintain the properties. So you're correct.
And the last thing I'd say is on the water, on the water elements, on the increases. I'm assuming that we're working with the city on all available incentives for water conservation at all, and getting as much out of that as possible that is eligible.
Right. Yeah. So the property works. The property managers and different property management companies work with the different utility companies, public utilities for water and sewer. I think you'll appreciate with SDG&E, actually, all of our properties are part of the CARE program. Since the properties are not owned by the Public Housing Authority, but individual LLCs, we're eligible for that. So for a long time, we've been participating with that program.
And we're now expanding that to the
Public
PSH,
housing, yeah. But if you're having a point of contact with on SDG will be really helpful.
agree.
So thank you for that.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks so much, Mitch. Do we have a motion at this point?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you so much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. We will now adjourn as the HDP Board to reconvene as the HDP Mason Board. May we use the same motion and second for item 102 on the HDP Mason Board agenda?
Yes.
Wonderful. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. That concludes our action items for today. Do any board members have any questions about the informational items listed on today's agenda for either HDP or HDP Mason? Wonderful. We will adjourn the HDP Mason board meeting now at 9:43. But the HDP board will be meeting in closed session. Mr. Christensen, will you please announce the closed session agenda?
Yes, I will. The HDP board will convene in closed session to discuss its closed session agenda, which includes item Roman numeral 4A, which is conference with legal counsel concerning potential initiation of litigation. That will be the only matter discussed in closed session.
All right. No speaker slips have been submitted for the closed session, so this concludes the public comment period. We'll wait a moment to clear the room, and then we'll begin closed session. Ready? All right. This is Lisa Jones, Chair of the HDP Board of Directors. The board has concluded its closed session and is reconvening in open session at 10:02. Council Chuck Christensen will now announce actions the board took in closed session.
Thank you very much. The board met in closed session to discuss its closed session agenda, and by a vote of 4-0, gave instructions to council concerning the initiation of litigation. That concludes the matters that were discussed in closed session.
Thank you, Chuck. This concludes the HDP board's meeting today. This meeting is adjourned at 10:03. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.